All right, welcome into another edition of Chatterbox Reds. Got a special guest, sort of special. I mean, he's special this time of the year, not special during the regular season, but during the off season, it's always great when we have Trace Fowler grace our presence. Trace, as much fun as I like to have, there's two reasons why we don't see you on as much during the off season. Number one, you just do not have it in your heart to get excited about Keegan Thompson like I do. And two, you have to catch up for all the stuff in the summer so my kids can eat.
Yes. Yeah. Both of those things are true. I think you got me pegged exactly as I should be. There are just not too many things that happen in the off season outside of some things that could possibly happen traditionally from, I guess, mid-December on, which we're getting closer. We're getting closer. I don't know when that free agency domino starts to fall, which we'll probably get into a little bit during the show. But yeah, I'm kind of pretty sparse when it comes to Chatterbox Reds content in the off season. And you know what? I think it's probably best if we're being honest, Nick.
Well, when you come on, you make it count. And I thought today was a good time because there was kind of an interesting comments from Nick Krall last night or 2 nights ago as you're listening or watching this on Reds Hot Stove League. And I kind of want to get Trace's opinion on, have a conversation about that. Before we get to that, Trace, I know you're probably like me, always having a brutal time this time of the year to find holiday gifts, especially for other guys, like for me, for my dad, for my brother. But we have holiday magic made easy with Omaha Steaks. You can place orders by 6 p.m. Eastern and get it shipped the same day. Right now, their Sizzle All the Way sale. You get 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $35 off with promo code Chatterbox at checkout. Trace, what has been your favorite thing that you've gotten so far with Omaha? I know you've partaken in the Omaha Steaks like I have. What's been your favorite thing?
I know you're a big dog guy. You like the Franks. I must admit those are solid. But I still am a filet guy. I know that makes me sound like prim and proper, maybe high class. I don't really like to come off that way. I try not to be that, but there's not too many things better than a filet mignon, Nick. Although the apple, I got to get the name right. I know.
Apple tartlets. I won't forget that.
The apple tartlets, if we're being honest, are right behind. If there was one thing that I would say separated of all the things that surprised me the most, the apple tartlets were the number one. I knew the filet was going to be good. I came into it expecting that, right? I think that maybe if you come into this season, you might expect Hunter Green to be good. I'm thinking that, maybe like I don't, just hypothetically speaking, maybe the apple tartlet, they're like Emilio Pagan for most of the season. It's like a nice pleasant surprise. Like, wow, I didn't think that he'd be the closer and he'd be this good this many times. Well, turns out that was the tartlets for me. So I don't know. I don't think you can go wrong.
Maybe more like a Connor Phillips because of their, because of
better
the price.
Even better. Yeah, that's a good point.
We paid $8 million for Emilio Pagan. We just finally got it back. But anyways, save big on gourmet gifts and more holiday favorites with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during the Sizzle All the Way sale. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code Chatterbox at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. That's omahasteaks.com, code Chatterbox. Well, Trace, Reds Hot Stove League show was on Wednesday night, and Nick Krall was on. And whenever Nick Krall comes on, I tell the social team, hey, let's have someone watching, be ready to clip up because there'll probably be a good clip. And sure enough, there was a good clip. I'll just go ahead and play it for you and we'll react.
Elly De La Cruz, the defensive problems have been well documented the last couple of years. And he had let's just say a more down year overall, defensively, even at the plate, certainly with the power numbers. Not sure how much defense is getting into his head. I don't know. I can't ever read a player on that or get in a player's mind. But have you entertained the idea of him playing other positions at all?
At this point, no. So if you look at his year last year, and I think a lot of people don't know this, at the end of the year, towards the end of July, he was dealing with a partial torn quad, and he has been rehabbing. He's at the ballpark. He was at the ballpark today. He's been rehabbing over the last this whole offseason. To his credit, he played every day. He tried to grind through it. He tried to play through it. If you look at his defensive numbers, he made 12 errors through roughly towards the end of July when he got hurt, and then he made 14 from the end of July on. He's trying to play through it. He wasn't able to do it as successful as possible. I think he had a stretch of games where he had 19 homers and he didn't hit one until some point in September. That's going to affect him. That's going to affect everything he does. But to his credit, he was trying to play every single day through it. He tried to grind through it, and to the detriment of himself, he didn't play up to where he was. But a large part of that is because he's trying to play through the injury. So I do think that you look at where he was up until that point where he got hurt, and he was definitely better defensively. It's just he didn't finish the way he started.
All right, well, there's a lot to unpack there. First and foremost, and probably not the takeaway a lot of people have. It's not my biggest takeaway, but I like Jim Day a lot. I heard Jim Day say this. I've heard a lot of other people say this. Ellie didn't have a good year. I'm fine if you want to say Ellie didn't reach our expectations or was maybe a little bit disappointing based on the expectations that we had. To say he didn't have a good year, to me, is kind of ridiculous when he was twice as good as anyone on this Reds roster. What he did through July is the only reason the Reds even sniffed the playoffs. If it wasn't for Elly De La Cruz in the first half, the Reds would have been selling everything at the trade deadline. So I don't get that aspect. Am I the only one who has an issue with people saying Ellie didn't have a good year?
Well, I guess like everything in life, it's all perspective. It's all based off of when you say someone didn't have something that's good or bad, you're basing it off of some premeditated decision that you had in your mind of what you thought that they should be. So I don't have a problem with people saying he didn't have a good year, because I think realistically speaking, the vast majority of the fan base expected a lot out of Ellie. That's the question, or the $1 million question. What is fair and what's not fair to expect out of a kid that just got his first year under his belt in the big leagues, and then the very next year you're expecting him to make another, I guess, a jump forward. And Ellie had a very, very good year defensively the year prior. I think of all things, Nick, that's the one thing that I think that when you're asked that question about Ellie switching positions, that's the number one carrot that you got. That's the number one reason that he shouldn't be considered to move positions yet, is because he was so good defensively the year prior. I don't like this notion of Nick Krall kind of placing blame on the fact that he was injured, and that directly correlated to how he played. Now, I don't know where you want to start with that, because there's a million different avenues you can go down about the way in which he answered that question. And you know what? I'll say this about Nick Krall. I do think that he has hit some home runs. He's also signed the Candelarios of the world, excuse me. So there's been, there's been good and bad with him. He always kind of just speaks what I think, and maybe he's fooling me. He says things that I just genuinely don't really think that a general manager should probably say. I just feel like he always goes above and beyond of the status quo of what answer you expect him to give. I'm not suggesting for a single second that I don't want him to continue to do it. It helps us out. It gives us a chance to talk about him. So I'm not complaining, but he's not the best person that I've ever heard answer questions. And I hope he probably will never get into politics after this, because he wouldn't be very good at it. So having said that, I could split this thing apart, Nick. The reality is if we knew he was hurt and we think that that's directly tied to his performance, then he shouldn't have played. You have to try to get him healthy, because the way that he was performing and the way that he performed over a long period of time, Nick, was nowhere near the level that we needed him to be at for this team to rise to the occasion and play well enough to get anywhere meaningful. The crazy thing about it all is someone's going to say, well, they made the playoffs. I'm not going down that rabbit hole right now, Nick, but we were very fortunate. I'm thankful we made it, but we can't sit here and act like that was a status quo situation, that we played well enough, the Reds played well enough to get into the postseason. That was a very, very, very lucky thing that happened. So So if he was hurt, then by all means, yeah, I'm optimistic moving forward because that gives us a very easy and clean answer as to why he struggled. But I also think there's a chance that Nick Krall, quite frankly, is just kind of using that to protect Ellie a little bit. Now, how was he hurt? Yes. Was he hurt so much that it made him go that long of a streak without hitting a home run and also be pretty poor fundamentally at times defensively? I don't buy it, but at the same time, I'll take Nick Krall at him for his word. If he's basically telling everybody that they're idiots out loud, then I guess I'll believe him. I don't want to believe that my favorite team, front office and organization as a whole, thought it was smart to run out a kid who's very young in the big leagues, who was injured, who wasn't playing well, and thought, yeah, he wants to play. Yeah, we don't care. We'll let him play. We're not going to protect him and just sell him that, hey, you're going to have to sit out for a few weeks to let this thing heal up. Crazy is what I think.
I think it 1,000% is all on the manager. Like Terry Francona has more control over who plays on a given basis than probably any manager since Lou Piniella, maybe. Like he has as much cachet as anyone. So I saw people blaming Nick Krall. I'm like, I don't think Nick Krall had any. I think Nick Krall has lost control of who plays any day, and it is 1,000% on Terry Francona. So I'm with you, though. I don't understand. Zach Kozar put out a tweet like right after this news came out. I'll read it to you. He said, so I played all of 2017 with a grade 2 quad strain, but needed some rest periodically. If your best player has a quad tear and plays one of the most demanding position, who allows the kid to play 162? And Zach Kozar was an all-star in 2017. That was the reason that he got that nice contract from the Angels. So he still was able to play well through it, but he needed days off, like he said. And Zach Kozar played an era where there wasn't even a DH. Like there's a DH, there's a designated hitter. So I'm with. I think it's insanity that they ran him out there every day. I just don't know what the logic was. Like they thought that his performance was so bad that they moved him down to 6th in the lineup. So like they acknowledged that, but they didn't.
It took a long time though.
But they didn't acknowledge to give him days off. That's crazy to me.
It took him a long time. I mean, it took him a long time to move Ellie from the 3-hole down to that 6-hole, 7-hole area, wherever he ended up landing. The thing that I, again, go back to that maybe is the most frustrating is that it's got to be a collective decision too. I'm not going to give all of the blame to Tito. If you're Nick Krall, you should be looking at this thing like a little more holistically, a little more futuristically. I don't want Terry Francona managing the baseball team thinking about 2-3 years down the line. But as a general manager, you should be. I mean, you should definitely be saying to yourself, I'm not going to let this go on any longer. I'm going to have to go down there. Now people are laughing when I say that out loud, but that's what a good organization would do. Like a good organization, the general manager, no matter who the manager is, the general manager should have at least some of the courage to go to the manager. And I get Terry Francona has done significantly more in the game of baseball than Nick Krall has. So people are going to say, well, you think Terry Francona should listen to Nick Krall? I'm just saying that a good organization would go in there and collectively make a decision to protect. Here's my thing. It's not even just protecting Ellie. It's making the team better. I mean, I'm not trying to be overly crazy about how bad Ellie was, but let's face it. If Ellie genuinely was hurt, he wasn't playing even nowhere near a level, a high enough level, Nick, that he couldn't have found a replacement for a week and a half to try to let that heal. And again, I am going to go back and just say to myself, I think Nick Krall, and I could be wrong, this is speculation, I think Nick Krall is trying to kind of stick up for Ellie by saying that he was hurt and by saying that, I'm going to exaggerate this torn quad. I'm going to make it sound like it's a little worse than really it was. He has had bad fundamentals at shortstop this past year that caused him to make some errors. I think the one thing that we missed out on a little bit, maybe it was quad related, is I don't think we got as many kind of, I don't want to say like extraordinary plays. I don't think he had the outs above average plays that kind of saved a few of those errors. He didn't make as many of those in 2025. But as I said before, you don't need to blame a quad to say that's why you want to give Ellie another year. Period, point blank. He was great. He was great in 2024 defensively. that deserves at least another opportunity in 2026. And I think 2026 is a make or break season a little bit for Ellie. If it goes relatively well or status quo, he'll stay at shortstop. If it goes as poorly as it did in 25, I could see them making a rash decision and moving him. And if it goes like it did in 2024, everyone's going to like you. Everyone's going to make fun of everybody talking about how he should move positions because he'd be one of the best shortstops in baseball defensively. So I don't know where it's going to go, but those are your options.
Yeah, I think defensively, I agree. He didn't have like those spectacular plays, which did hurt some of like his overall value at shortstop. But in the second half of the season, I don't necessarily think a lot of his deficiencies were like necessarily his ability to get to balls. It felt like they were very mental stuff, which the quad probably played into that mentality where he just looked worn down, and I'm sure playing through an injury added to the tiredness or made it significantly worse than just normal, exhaustion that late in the season. But again, that just is the same thing of he needed rest, and that's what was just the crazy thing to me. I think Nick Krall, to your point, sort of, I think Nick Krall, the reason he's not going to move Elly De La Cruz is because he looks at the outs above average and he goes, this guy played hurt and he was only like -4. It wasn't really that bad. And ironically, the numbers actually were better in the second half for him, outs above average wise, than the first half, so which doesn't exactly make sense.
Right.
But this is a nice narrative that kind of fits the fan that doesn't care about outs above average. This maybe fits the why we're not moving him. And I think that's his excuse to use, say that he wasn't really that bad based on the numbers and he was hurt.
Yeah. If I was Nick Krall, I'd say it simply put. The guy was excellent. Absolutely one of the best shortstops in all of Major League Baseball defensively in 2024. He had a tough year in 2025. We're not just going to jump ship because of one bad season. We're going to go out in 2026 with the expectation that he's going to be healthy. He's going to be back to who he was in 2024, and we're going to move forward. We'll cross the bridge of where Ellie should go if we find ourselves in a position that ultimately deems that we have to make a decision on that. But I'm not going to speculate here in 2025's offseason or headed into the 2026 year on whether or not he should move before he ever plays an out of baseball in 2026. I think it's crazy, and I also think it's unrealistic to think that there's someone right behind him that's there to take his place. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, Nick. I've done this a million times, but there's not a guy behind him right now that you can pencil in at shortstop that's an excellent baseball player that's not going to provide you some of the same issues. And if he, again, and I'll make this very clear, if he did have someone directly behind him right now that was an elite all-star level, or let's not even say an all-star level, but an elite level, really good player at shortstop, then maybe you consider it. But there's not an alternative. So, as far as him moving positions, we're just not there yet. And, I think in a perfect case scenario, he goes out and he's the 2024 Ellie, and we move on and we laugh about how we thought he was going to be, moved to center field. But it wouldn't shock me in the slightest by the All-Star break if he was moved to center field, because he goes out, he struggles at the beginning of the year, and all of a sudden there's decisions that are made that are pretty rash. And I think that ultimately at the end of the day, Terry Francona's voice is going to weigh over everyone else. And I think Terry Francona feels as if he can't trust his shortstop to go out and make routine plays, I think it's not that unfathomable to believe the same guy that had Spencer Steer playing left field in the playoff game, and the same guy that threw Noelvi Marte into center field, and then the same guy that put Noelvi Marte in right field after saying that it was unfair to catch Banfield after one game, that wouldn't shock me. And it really wouldn't. So I think that's how I feel headed into the 2026.
I think Ellie will be significantly better, assuming the health. And that's also another thing is like, there's no guarantee that he won't get off to a slow start coming back from this if he's still rehabbing almost into December from this. That doesn't guarantee that he's going to be there. But I know Ellie wants to play shortstop, and I know he's going to get paid a lot more to play shortstop. And I do think Ellie has some smart people in his ear in terms of obviously, Scott Boras. Scott Boras isn't the kind of agent that's not going to be scared to tell Ellie, look, you got to improve your defense because you're going to lose millions and millions and millions of dollars if they move you to center field. I think that he has that. So I do think he'll be motivated, not just. And Ellie's a team guy. Like he's done nothing to ever make us think that he isn't a team guy. I mean, in fact, the guy tried to play through an injury all year and tanked his numbers. I mean, if Ellie would have played his last game on July 25th, we would have been like, wow, sucks Ellie got hurt, but man, what an incredible year. Look at those numbers he put up. And the conversation would have been so much more pro Ellie if he would have never played another game, which is kind of crazy when you think about it.
Yep. Well, last point on Ellie is that I actually think that they probably would have rested him, Nick, if there was a replacement that was going to hit his weight. But unfortunately, all the guys that would have replaced him at shortstop more or less didn't have a chance to help offensively. And I think that, and you've seen it towards the back end of the year, I think that Tito was trying to find ways to get bats in the lineup that he thought could help. Despite, our feelings for how he managed the outfield. The reality is that to be clear, once again, he did stick Gavin Lux at second base a few times to try to get an extra bat in there. He did stick Spencer Steer in left field to try to open up a spot for Sal Stewart to play first base. So he did do these things. I just don't think there was anybody to play shortstop that they thought, wow, we're going to get a bump offensively, even though, we might lose out a little bit on the athleticism of Ellie. There just never was a clean replacement. And really, Matt McClain struggling this past season really, really, really had a huge domino effect. I don't know if people really understand how big of an impact that actually made for this baseball team, of him being really inept most of the season. Hopefully he has a chance to bounce back. But yeah, that's where I kind of feel about Ellie going into 2026. Yeah,
I agree with all that. If you are in complete disagreement, you're screaming at your TV or your smartphone or your car stereo, listen to this podcast. I want you to go on YouTube and I want you to leave us a comment, and I want you to tell us, we're all ears,
right,
how the Reds are a better team with Elly De La Cruz in center field. I want the whole roster, and how you're going to make the team better in 2026 with $15 million. I want to know the answer, because I'm searching for it. So let me know. Let us know in the comments. All right. We're going to talk about Kyle Schwarber in Middletown, in your neck of the woods. Yeah. Going to play a little bit of audio about that. But first, a quick word from our sponsors. Deep South Commodities is a proud supporter of Chatterbox Reds and our Deep Drive of the Day. And DSC is a leader in renewable commodities for biofuel production, specializing in used cooking oil collection, aggregation, and sales. Visit www.deepsouthcommodities.com for more information. Thanks as always to our friends at DSC. And we also want to remind you that you can call or text 988 anytime, day or night. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is a place to get support for anything related to mental health. Whether it's an immediate crisis, simply wanting to find out how to connect with care, or anything in between, it's a 100% confidential, secure, and anonymous way to reach out for help when you don't know where else to turn. To connect, call or text 988 or visit mantherapy.org to get help. It's okay not to be okay. All right, Kyle Schwarber returned to Middletown High School for a special event earlier this week. And we're not going to play the part where he ripped on our good friend G-Dub. We'll leave that out of it. But here was the comments that he had to say at that event.
I grew up going to games there. I grew up sitting in the bleachers and watching a lot of games, and I think the kid would be excited, right? Of you have your hometown team that's calling. So but also being in the profession and knowing a little bit more of the ins and outs, right? Be an open ear, right? You always have to listen and keep different options open and to see what happens.
Now, there's a guy who could be a politician, Trace. That was a very
perfect answer.
Very political answer. He was ready.
Yeah, he had his answer. I think that ultimately he knew what he was going to say before the question was asked. I don't know where to go with this. I tell you, I could go probably for 20 minutes on this subject, because I think it has so many different dovetails on it that you could go down about whether or not that should be a thing in Major League Baseball, or whether or not the Reds organization's at fault, or is it because you got players who are too greedy, or whatever. I'm not here to place blame on anybody. The truth is this. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that when you get older in life, you've already had some success, things that you used to think maybe were vitally important aren't as important as they used to be, and you start to value things differently, especially when you have kids. I said this obviously on a post I made. When you have kids, I think it changes your life significantly. I think it makes you view kind of the way in which the aspirations that you once had to do certain things. You realize, well, if that takes away the opportunity for me to be either around my kids more or do more for my kids, you kind of for whether you want to say you're being unselfish or not, you put things aside. You'd rather do things that you'd never thought you'd do before. I'm not an idiot. Money talks. He's going to warrant a lot of money. There's going to be many suitors that want to have a guy like Kyle Schwarber on their baseball team. I'm not naive to that. All I'm suggesting and saying about Kyle Schwarber and the Cincinnati Reds is this. It is by far, in my opinion, his number one option. If the Reds, and I'm not saying the Reds should or could do this, to be clear, I'll walk through this whole thing. But if the Reds were capable of matching any offer that was put on the table, he would be a Cincinnati Red. His kids are relatively young. They're right around the age that you would traditionally start school. His wife is from the area. He's from the area. Her parents are from the area. His parents from the area. All of his friends that he had mentioned in that same interview have kids around his kids' same age that he brought up. Voluntarily, by the way. This wasn't provoked of him. He said these things out loud. In a perfect world, Kyle Schwarber makes a good amount of money, plays for a baseball team in his hometown that's competitive enough to get to the postseason, and then anything can happen. The one thing that baseball team didn't have last year was quite literally the thing that Kyle Schwarber provides. It's not like that they have a lack of starting pitching problem or relieving problem or anything like that caused them to have issues in 2025, and that's why they weren't very good. They made the postseason. For all the people that keep telling me that the Reds aren't competitive, they did make the postseason. Second of all, as far as them having enough money to field the offer, well, that's where I'm at now with the nuts and bolts of this whole thing. I'm not suggesting for a single second that the Reds 100% have the money. Okay. I don't know if anybody's been paying attention to the finances in baseball, but the Padres currently are about to go up for sale. And the reason they're going to go up for sale is because they had an owner who had a terminal illness who said, you know what? The hell with it, man. I'm going out and I'm going to go out with a bang. And I'm going to go spend a bunch of money in a small market. And you know what? The Padres, they've been very, very good. They've sold out that stadium time and time and time again. And everybody always tells me, if you build a winner, if you spend a bunch of money, well, that's going to pay itself off. Imagine how much money you could sell in tickets and hot dogs and all these things you're going to sell. Well, is that why the Padres ownership group, after obviously their family has some situations going on there, is that why they're probably trying to find a seller as we speak right now? No. The reality is that it's really, really hard to run even a somewhat profitable business by spending the amount of money you have to spend in Major League Baseball anymore to be competitive. So if you're an ownership group, the question ultimately lies is why do it? Why spend a ton of money when it's not even guaranteed that you win? Oh, by the way, the Mets just this past year spent $1 bazillion and then they choked all the way down. Could you imagine if you were in a small market and you spent a ton of money and you were already you were already in debt up to your eyeballs with the amount of money you spent? And oh, by the way, the old measly Reds who spend no money, they make the postseason and you don't. That's not a very good kind of backbone to stand on if you're a general manager going to the owner and saying, hey, we need more money. So what I'm getting at is this. I don't know if Kyle Schwarber will sign with the Reds or not, but I am a fan, and the fan in me is going to believe that they can find a way to do it until they don't. And when they don't, I'll probably say, yeah, that was stupid to think they had a chance, but I'm going to do it. And if you're going to sit there and tell me that I'm stupid for doing it, well, then maybe when I get to the point where I can't believe that a guy that wants to be a Cincinnati Red has no chance to sign as a free agent to the Cincinnati Reds, then I'll probably stop being a fan. But I'm not there yet. So I just, Nick, it's simple. Money is a big part of it. Is Nick Krall going to have the ability to even field an offer? I don't know. But I do know this. Kyle Schwarber would be an idiot to turn down an extra $15-20 million too, because that's generational wealth. I'm not suggesting for a single second that that's not possible. But I'd like to think that we can make a competitive offer. I don't know what that looks like, Nick. Maybe it's $5 million difference, $6 million difference. At the end of the day, that's still a lot of money. But if you're Kyle Schwarber, maybe you value those things over $5 million over the grand scheme of it. I don't know. But I just think that, listen, the Reds ownership group has been through a lot in this city. They've had campaigns ran against them to try to sell the team. There has been nothing but negative things said about the Castellinis for the most part of a past decade, 15 years, whatever, how many ever years you want to go back. I'm not suggesting for a second that they win everybody over by signing one player. But if you want to shake the narrative, if you want to one time in your ownership career truly probably having the fans praise you, you find a way to step outside the box, Nick, and you go out and you go for it. And you know what's crazy about saying that is I think genuinely, if you go for it and it doesn't work and this new collective bargaining agreement doesn't go the way of the small owners and the way that they hope, then you know what? At that point, I think that you can actually look yourself in the mirror and sell it and say that it was never, Major League Baseball was never intended for ownership groups like us to win, because it's become a super, super wealthy, multi-billionaire hobby sport. Or maybe you go for it. Maybe you get the city buzzing. Maybe the Reds go on a run. And you know what? The whole entire narrative about who you are and who you were as an owner completely flips on its head. And I think that's still possible for the Castellinis, believe it or not.
Yeah, no, well said. I agree wholeheartedly. I don't think there's enough people that realize how rare it is to have a premium free agent that you actually have a chance of matching the best offer and them choosing you. That doesn't happen in Cincinnati.
No.
Like most of these free agents, you have to overpay. The Reds had to overpay to get Mike Moustakas to come here. They had to overpay to get Nick Castellanos to come here. That wasn't the fair market deal. They didn't say, "Oh, you know what? Cincinnati, that's where I want to go." Like this is the rare opportunity that you have that. And there's not a whole lot of franchises in any professional sport that could get one free agent that's not the overall value wouldn't even be one of the
Juan
top,
Soto. It's not Juan Soto.
I think it's one of the top 50 overall overall deals.
Right.
Like
yes.
it's not like very rare do you have the opportunity to go sign a deal like this and it completely flips the narrative on you. So that'd be my challenge. I mean, find a way. Like if there's never a way, then this. And I can stomach not signing Juan Soto. I can stomach not signing Ohtani and all that. It'd be very disheartening if there's not even a remotely a competitive offer for this specific free agent at this specific time. And again, we can speculate whose fault it is. It's got to be fixed if you can't in this particular time, because it's unacceptable from every aspect of the sport.
I couldn't say it better myself. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't even care about who we place the blame on. It's not about placing blame. And you know what? If Kyle Schwarber decides that he wants to go play in a different city and the Reds offer him just as much money, I would be shocked. To be honest, I would be completely shocked if that happens. Because I do think that Kyle Schwarber brings the one thing that this team needs. They need veteran leadership. They also need a power bat, and they need some reliability that you can consistently count on from the offensive side. And he would completely fill that role. Would it make them instant World Series contenders? Of course not. Of course not. But it's not like, I guess my last point is like, it's not like Kyle Schwarber signing up to play for the Rockies. He's not signing up for a death sentence. He doesn't have to sign up to lose 105 games a year. He's not signing up for that. He's actually signing up, to be quite frankly, with the best opportunity the Reds have had as a franchise in the last how many ever years, 15 plus years, that they legitimately could be one of the better teams in the National League. The issue is that they need offensive help, and he would be certainly that. But again, I find it absolutely insane. I just find it insane that we find ourselves in a spot where Major League Baseball franchises like ours would not even be able to field a competitive offer. And again, I think you can go to the Castellanos thing. People are going to say, Nick, oh, they didn't even offer Castellanos. What makes you think? I think there's a small chance that the Reds didn't even really want to entertain Castellanos because they didn't think that he was ever even going to become close to worth the amount of money that they were going to have to pay him. You can't say that about Kyle Schwarber here. I mean, it's kind of impossible. So we'll see what happens, but maybe I'm naive. And trust me, maybe I'm naive. I'm going to expect Santa Claus to come right down that chimney, Nick, and provide me with a holly jolly Christmas in the name of Kyle Schwarber.
Well, we will see. Trace, do you think him going back to Middletown there was any coincidence with that? Because I don't know, maybe this was in the works for 5 years, but it sure felt like him going to Middletown right now. There was some motivation for that. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're wrong. Listen, he just built a house in just outside of Middletown. I mean, people think I'm crazy. I don't have any inside information, but I do have someone that I know very, very, very well that I coached, who's one of his best friends since high school. And I asked him point blank, is there any chance, like even a remote chance? And he said I'm going to push him as hard as I can. And I know that he's got a lot of things that would want him to be around here, but I ultimately don't know. So listen, it's exactly what you said, man. It feels like too good to be true, too good of a situation, too perfect of things to collide to make something even reasonably possible. But here we are, I mean, I don't want to get my hopes up because ultimately then you just get your hopes torn down. But I just think it's the one thing that could actually legitimately change my entire mindset about this baseball team is Kyle Schwarber. And I know that's stupid because it's only one player and who knows, he could get hurt the second week of the season and be out all year. I don't know. But man, you add one or two pieces in a lineup, Nick, and your whole lineup changes. And we've seen that this past year in 2025.
Yeah, I need to debate where Schwarber should be batting in the lineup the whole month of January and February. I would love that.
Yeah, he'll probably hit fourth.
7th. He doesn't have a high enough average. The non-tender deadline, Trace, is today for people watching or listening to this, Friday, November 21st at 4 p.m. MLB trade rumor said the Reds' only candidate is Gavin Lux. I just can't imagine the Reds are going to admit defeat and non-tender him, but we shall see. MLB trade rumors also had a list of players that could be traded ahead of the deadline, and they speculated that Spencer Steer could be one. And with his cost, expected to get a raise up to about $5 million, he could be a tradable player. A lot of times teams do like to trade players before they have to commit to getting them into the arbitration process. So I'm not saying that could be either one of those guys. It could be someone completely different. It could be Will Benson tomorrow. Could be one. Or it could be someone way, way more. Or the Reds could maybe be on the other end, or there's another team that has a player that they're maybe, we don't know if we have the budget for them. We want to trade them now so we don't have to go through the whole arbitration process. So that'll be something close to follow. Certainly if there's any breaking news or anything big that happens, we'll do something on Friday. Any thoughts on the non-tender deadline, or you just kind of like, let's just wait and see what happens?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything the Reds could do that would really, really upset me outside. And I would even say this about Will Benson. Like if it ends up being Will Benson, I guess I'd rather see him go somewhere where he's happy. It sounds like the old it sounds like the girlfriend that you love that breaks up with you. Well, whatever makes you happy. If you're happy without me, then so be it. If Will Benson gets an opportunity somewhere else, then so be it. But yeah, Gavin Lux is a really interesting case because they did ultimately give up somebody that I think is going to be pretty good in Sirota. They've admitted defeat before though, Nick. So let's not actually pull the rug out from underneath this front office when it comes to that, because I think that they actually shockingly cut Candelario, which made me that's changed my complete perspective on the Reds front office when it comes to making decisions about money. So we'll see what they do.
All right, we shall see. A lot of relievers on the list. I could definitely see the Reds making a trade for a reliever on Friday. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on. All right, one last talking point here. Trace, MLB announced a massive new media rights deal. I'll kind of run through it quickly here. So Netflix has the Home Run Derby, the Field of Dreams game, and they have the opening night game. NBC and Peacock have Sunday Night Baseball. I'm interested to see what that looks like. All wild card playoff games. The Sunday leadoff, that's the early games that were previously on Roku, the Futures game, the MLB draft, and then special event holiday games like Labor Day. ESPN, they're able to work out a small agreement. They have 30 regular season games, so not a whole lot. That's their only extent of their like national coverage. But then now fans can purchase and watch out-of-market games on the ESPN app in addition to MLB TV. Fox and FS1 keeps the World Series, the rest of the playoffs, the All-Star game, and more. TBS still has some playoff games. And then Apple TV runs back Friday Night Baseball, which I know me and you enjoyed that. I mean, I guess good for baseball. I think teams are supposed to get an extra $7 million. I don't love the whole 80 different streaming services. At the same time, I already have all of those things because I have kids, which Trace, you probably have most of those as well. So I'm kind of, I always love seeing a new score bug. So I can't wait to see the Netflix score bug.
You're such a score bug guy. Yeah, I knew as soon as you heard. I can't wait to see what that looks like on NBC. I was like imagining you thinking about what that score bug might appear like with the peacock on it. Who knows? But as far as my thoughts on it, listen, I think the reality is that Major League Baseball is in a weird spot right now because they're trying to feel some stuff out, and I don't think they have anything that's like a great partner at this point. Maybe NBC will become that. Obviously, Fox has always been kind of their postseason, spot. I do like the idea on the last day of the regular season having a place that you can go to see all the meaningful games. That is very cool. I am very appreciative of that. As far as the different streaming services, I do understand why people would have a little bit of an issue with it. But like you said, I have a lot of those streaming services already. So it doesn't really affect me as much. And as somebody that has bought, I don't know, I had 4 different streaming services to try to get Reds games throughout what seems like the last 4 years. So I'm used to it. They've dragged me through the mud enough to now to where I feel good about it. I don't know. I guess for lack of an opinion, I don't really know yet what I think of it because I haven't seen it. But usually it's better to be able to access baseball in some capacity than none at all. The blackouts are always going to be the thing that at some point, I don't know, has there been anything mentioned about blackouts yet? Have we gotten to that stage of the discussion?
They're still so far in bed with the local TV rights that they're going to, and it's because like the Dodgers are the biggest reasons they signed that massive deal, 300 plus million, I think it was. And so like trying to get out of that, it's going to probably have to get really ugly before they finally get out of that. It's probably going to look really dire for everyone before I think they get out of that, because some teams are making a ton of money. The Reds are not one of those teams, though.
Correct. Yes.
Certainly in relative to the rest of the league, but also not the worst because they were able to get if the Reds went to FanDuel instead of going to MLB, that to me signals there is some health that was better than a team like the Guardians. So they're not the worst of the worst, but they're not in a great spot either.
Yeah, no doubt. I think a lot of this stuff gets cleaned up, and or there will be more direct, clean answers during the CBA and what that looks like, and if there is some kind of revenue share or the cap seems like a crazy thing, but I think there's a lot of pressure. This will be the most pressure packed thing, CBA for the players specifically. Usually the owners are the ones I think get most of the heat when it comes to the collective bargaining, and they're the ones that, more, I guess, the fan base would lean on trying to get the negotiations to end. I think, and I could be wrong, but I think there's going to be more people that are actually in line with making this a fair and competitive league than usual, and that's going to fall on the owners more or less as the people that people were going to side on. So we'll see what that ultimately looks like.
Yeah, how far they actually get down, I don't know the answer to that, but I do think there's more motivation on that side than we've ever seen. So we shall see. Last thing, times were announced for at least the Reds home games. Opening day, March 26th, 4:10 p.m. against the Boston Red Sox. We keep the lovely 6:40 games in April and September just to show the Reds they hate us. 12:40 now. Your new time for weekday home games was 12:35. That was the other big change. But we'll look forward to that. March 26th, it'll be here before you know it. It always sneaks up on us, and certainly spring training and all that will be as well. Well, Trace, this has been a blast, my friend. Always nice to talk to you.
Yeah, nice talking to you as well. Hopefully all is well. I'm sure the new year will hit. We don't have 5 yet, right? We don't
have 5. We're definitely stopping at 4.
Okay. You heard it here first, folks.
There's no turning back there. We'll leave it at that.
You know what they say about off-season Kirby?
Yeah, off-season Kirby's a tired man right now. No, good chat with you. All kinds of great content here on Chatterbox Sports. Flying Lion, those guys have been working hard. I know FC Cincinnati's got a huge game against Messi this weekend. Chatterbox Bearcats is actually a brand new video this morning talking about the football game. There was one yesterday talking about the basketball game, which is tonight as you're watching, listening to this against Louisville. Those guys do a lot of good work. Off the bench, 10 a.m. Monday through Friday. Stone Shields show at 11 a.m. Stone's been getting a lot of really great guests on there. So links to all that stuff is in the episode notes below in podcast version. If you're on YouTube, of course, just start clicking around. We got content for everyone. Well, hope that you have a great day. We might talk again very soon, depending on how the non-tender deadline. If not, we'll try to do something here before Thanksgiving. And if you don't listen to us again, happy Thanksgiving from all of us here at Chatterbox Sports. Go Reds.
Go Reds, everybody.